Okay, in this video, I'm going to show an example of a high poly mesh and then capturing the displacement and placing it onto an arbitrary low poly mesh. And I'm going to do this using p-text displacement. What I've got here is what I will call the high poly mesh, and it's going to have some displacement things that we're going to want to capture, and I'll just go ahead and add some more. So here's some height, and maybe we'll just kind of do some dips as well, something like that. Yeah, and we're going to go ahead and try to capture. So now that I've got this, I'll go ahead and bring in my low poly mesh. And I do that through the retopo group, and I'll grab this low poly mesh. And it's basically just a cube. So it's very different than the source high poly mesh. And I will hide the high poly. So this is the low poly mesh. All right, now that I have both of them in the scene together, I'll just go ahead and set to bake, bake it to p-text, and this is where I need to make sure that all my bounds are set. Make sure that this is extended past the highest displacement, so that's my maximum bounds. And then the minimum bounds is inside, which is going to be completely fine. That's good. So now we'll just hit OK. And I'll just set this to 16 million polys for the p-text. And just for something to represent it in my scene, I'll just go ahead and have that subdivided to a higher value. So now I'll just hit OK. And it's just going through the process of finding the normals along the surface and then finding the difference and capturing those displacements. All right, so now I'll go and take a look at this in the paint room. So I'll go ahead and turn off the high poly mesh. And this is actually the cube now. And I can show you this by pressing the 6 key. This will go into the low poly mode, and it will show you this as a normal map. And then when I tell it to switch to displacement and show me on the higher tessellated version, it's going to show me the full. And if I want to compare this with the sculpt, you'll see very, very minor differences. In fact, if I just zoom into here and flip it, it's almost identical. And in some ways, the texture is a little smoother, so it looks a little cleaner. And that's how you capture displacement on arbitrary shapes from high to low. Another thing to look at as well is here you can see the p-text files that it generated for that low poly. And if I click it again, that's the high poly.